It's not supposed to be
But when
publicly
it's slow down,
right?
you can drag properly. Very magical. Out of nowhere. Doesn't withdraw.
So, doesn't incorporate anything you do with the sound?
Yeah, the moment you drag up, down,
Is it just panning or is it
So,
everything. The moment you click,
hi
everything
guys, talk going to start now. So I don't have slides, so you're going to see like slides from video.
Yeah.
So the title of this video is The Gentle Introduction to Music Theory. Well, the URL, everything is there. So this talk is basically an adaptation of that talk, which I'm not going to. Basically, I'm not going to discuss everything that he discusses, but it should give you a basic idea of how music theory works and how you might use Ruby to create music. So this has nothing to do with Rails. This is purely for fun. So the first thing you would need to know is how sound. I mean, most of us will know sound works. Like sound is a wave, right? So we understand sound as a sine wave, and the easiest way to look at that wave is as a sine wave. So you're going to use Ruby or any other programming language to produce sound. You need to understand how computers understand sound. So assume that sine wave you see, the red line, is the basic sound wave. And basically, this is the analog wave, an analog signal that you get if you put a mic to a singer or to a guitar, for example. We understand that computers represent these things in binary, so you don't get the continuous line. You get what you see there, which is more like one particular pitch, one particular amplitude, then it just jumps to the next amplitude. It gets kind of jagged, so you get a very jagged curve. That's actually what happens in the computer. It's just that the what's the word to use? Each segment is so small that you can't tell the difference. It sounds almost exactly like regular music. So CD quality music is, I don't know if you can see here. So CD format consists of 44,100 measurements per second. So that's what you get here. This is like at 44,000 hertz. So it's very, very high rate of sampling. That's why you can't tell the difference between CD quality sound sort of and live music. Although you can still tell, some people can still tell the difference. Most of us can't. So this is CD quality. You can record at higher rates than this, and it gives you supposedly higher fidelity. So like when you go to Spotify, right, there's the premier, they call the paid version of Spotify, right? It's supposed to give you better music. This is what you get basically. You get a higher sampling rate here, and that's not the only statistic you want to know specifically. There's this other thing called the bit word length. Usually the term we use is bit depth. Basically, this is the number of bits used to measure the height on this graph. So the more bits you have, the more resolution you have. Okay, so there is a kind of retina resolution level where beyond that level, basically, human beings are not expected to tell the difference. Most CD quality, or at least the first CDs that were produced were using 16-bit. Now these days we use 24-bit, and that's like the limit really. You probably can't tell the difference beyond that. So that's how computers would understand sound. That's how a sound file you would expect a sound file to look like. So we just okay. Now in here he goes straight into the note. So the first note that we ever understand in music is a note called A. So every letter from A to G is given a note. So A is a note, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All these are notes, and the reference note for us is usually A. And in terms of frequency of sound, right now it's considered 440 hertz. This is not in a sense, it's arbitrary. It's not there's no science behind why 440 hertz. There's been people trying to argue about the science behind it. There used to be 444 hertz, and even before that it was 430 something hertz. Some people can tell the difference, most people can't. But yeah, they came up with ISO standard for this because it's pretty much arbitrary. So that's your A, and she can show you. So on the keyboard, you look at the black notes as your black keys as the reference, right? So you have a set of 2 black keys and then 3 black keys. This is your C, right, just behind the 2 black keys. Then B and A. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A again. So that's how it looks like on the piano. So in general music theory lessons, you start off by looking at the piano because it's easy to tell where which note is. So then your next question would be, what are the black keys? What notes are the black keys, right? Because A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then back to A. But that's not counting the black notes. So the black notes are something else, I'll get back to that. But there are notes also. So that's the general idea of what a note is, a musical note. So back to the code. This guy actually has a GitHub repository. I can't zoom in here. Can you read this? No, right?
Command plus.
Command plus. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to his very first. He has a GitHub repository of all this code, so you all can actually get to this code. This is the basic piece of code, A note, which if I run this, you will get a note. Just get this. A note. Yeah, so that is a note at the frequency 440. So how this code works is we put in a set of parameters, in this case the frequency and the sample rate. Sample rate is what I discussed earlier. So it's how much the sound wave is broken down in the unit of sound wave, basically. So in this case, we're not at 444,000, we're at 22,000. It's actually half of the CD quality, but it's good enough for our purposes. And this is the duration. So here, his particular set of code is using this gem called wave file, which helps you generate .wave files. So if you look at my project folder here, there's a a.wave, which is generated from running this a-node.rb. So what's happening here is basically his total frames. This variable is meant to represent how many of these small time units does he have in the total sound file. So in this case, it's calculated by the total duration that you want to play music for, multiplied by the sample rate. So duration is seconds, sample rate is frames per second, how many units per second. So that gives you a total number of frames for the whole set for this wave file. And cycles per frame, okay, here he understands a cycle as one sine wave, one wavelength for that sine. So he wants to know how many cycles per frame. So frequency is frames per second. Frequency is waves per second, and sample rate is frames per second, right? So waves per second divided by frames per second gives you waves per frame, right? So that's just some maths. That gives you the cycles per frame. How many wavelengths, or what fraction of a wavelength is covered in one unit or one frame in this case. And this is increment, which is 2 pi, because one cycle is 2 pi in wave theory, right? So this is another variable that the library needs to use. And this is basically the use of the library, which we're not very interested in. but you can look at it if you want. So this is the wave file gem methods. So that's what you get when I ran Ruby A notes. Can I enlarge this also? Yeah. So that's what I did. So that plays for you the A note. Okay, so that's roughly how notes are constructed. But then you want to know, so on the keyboard, if I play the A note, that's the frequency that should come out, right? But you want to know how to get the other notes, the frequency of the other notes. So there is a magic number, ratio rather. Maybe I should go to octaves first. Okay, so the first thing to understand about notes is that because they only run from A to G, after G you go back to A. So there's an octave difference. I only have one A here. No, two here. Okay, so this is A and this is A. They are both the note A, but they're different frequencies. So if this is 440 hertz, this is a higher frequency, right? But how do you decide what that frequency is? So music frequencies are calculated using ratios. So this is 440 hertz. This is again the same code, okay, as the previous one, but now we're playing a list of frequencies, okay, with the reference A note in the middle. So this is 220 hertz, and this is 880 hertz. So in music, when you double the frequency, you get one octave higher. When you halve the frequency, you get one octave lower, and that's what happens. So if I play this, so Ruby, there's no good reasoning why it's like that. Yeah, so that's the three notes together. So in order to give you like a visual idea of how this works, you can have the guitar. So if you look at the guitar, this is the E note, this string, this leftmost string. So this is the 12th fret. This gives you exactly one octave higher than the open string, right? And if you look at the position of this fret, this is exactly in the middle. So this is exactly cutting the wavelength that this string is producing by half. Cutting the wavelength by half means the frequency gets doubled. So that's what's happening. That's why this is exactly in the middle of the whole guitar. And there's a reasoning to why the frets are positioned this way as well. So that's a bit later. So we understand the octaves now. After that, you want to know how to get the rest of the keys. So okay, so then we have this slide that I need to show you from the video again. Somewhere here.
What's the question? Can you actually generate the samples without saving all this?
So the actual way that I'm familiar with is using MIDI, which has a number tagged to each note. Like 60 is middle C.
But something needs to read the MIDI file.
Yes.
So this you're producing the sound samples, right? But without saving to this, right? Can you just play like from the buffer?
No. As far as I know, cannot. Yeah. But MIDI you can, because you can generate a MIDI in the RAM memory, in the buffer, and then just play that MIDI. You don't have to read from the MIDI file.
But MIDI is a file format, right? To describe.
Yes.
Yeah. So like just the wave files itself is different, totally different. It's just like
so MIDI in general doesn't have to be a file. It's more of a format to describe music.
Yeah.
So you can generate that in the buffer without saving to a file.
And also like wave, right? It's the same thing, right? You can actually generate the wave data.
Yes.
And then play it from memory, right? But
in theory, yes.
Does this like
this particular gem cannot. But this particular gem is for reading and writing to memory. So I've not been able to find a way to do it in Ruby, but the way it's done in the video is like this. So you can see that as you run the code,
so
it saves the file. Yes, this is playing the file. Yeah. So that's what's happening. there might be a way here. But in this case, we're using the default gen, so I don't know how it might be done. Yeah. So that's basically one bit of it. So the next part is how you get the different notes, and that's where this screen comes in. So there is a magic number that you multiply with each frequency to get the frequency of the next note. So say you have the A, right? The next note is actually this note, this black key. And there's a magic number to do that you multiply this frequency to get this frequency. And from A to the next A in the octave is 12. So if you count the number of keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there should be, if you multiply this frequency with the magic number by 12 times, you should get one octave higher. So that's your formula for calculating that magic number. So you know that one octave is double the frequency, and you know that if you multiply this magic number by 12, by the number of 12 times, you should get that double. So the maths is R is the magic number, to the power of 12 should give you 2. So if you do this operation, you get 1.5, 1.059, da, 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 da. And we do that in the code here for the chromatic scale, 12 root of 2. Okay? So what this does is, starting from the base frequency, which is the A, one octave lower than the reference A, we generate for 12 times the frequencies of each note after that until the next A, the reference note A. So note frequencies start with current. Current is the base A. Current multiply equals 12 root of 2. So you get the current number multiplied by this number, which is supposed to give you the frequency of the next semitone. It's a bit mathematical, but yeah. So this gives you, if this is A, you multiply by this number, you get A sharp, which is one semitone higher than A. So the unit of pitch frequency for music, or the unit of notes is called the semitone. So one semitone higher than A gives you the black key. Then one semitone higher than this black key gives you B. And one semitone higher than B is C, and so on and so forth. So that's the unit of pitch. The chromatic scale, a scale is a set of notes that you play in a particular song. So in this case, the chromatic scale is basically all the possible notes from A to one octave higher A. So it's A sharp, B sharp, so on and so forth. So if I run this code, you will get something, basically all the possible notes you can play between that. So this is not music, but it's the basic building blocks of music. So if I play this on the guitar, one semitone is exactly one fret apart. So you get. So that's the chromatic scale, because it's just a plummet of music notes which don't really make any musical sense yet. So it's not waiting. Bye. It's not Google, it's Apple. Okay. Okay. Oh. It's not part of the presentation. Do not connect to the living room.
First thing in the cosine.
Try turning off.
Yeah, I think so. Just now.
How about HDMI drive?
Yeah. The thicker.
Yeah.
You need the adapter. Oh, and get-
Oh,
Sorry, this is a bit dry because it's music theory. It's how you build music from the ground up in terms of the science. So it's this.
you get the blue one. Yeah.
Oh.
That.
Okay.
That part I understood. As in the part I did before was sine wave just to generate a sound, but I didn't know
I need to change
what were
the.
the frequencies for each.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's the chromatic scale. I'm going to skip a bit because this is. Let's see. Okay, so that's what a scale is, and there is a sequence to all these possibilities because now you have a set of 12 different notes, right? In the whole music frequency spectrum. So how do you turn that into music? You don't. I guess the good starting point would be like if you the very first song we learn, right, is the do re mi fa sol la ti do. So that sequence is only 8 notes, right? Not the whole 12. So the next part would be how do you get that 8 notes? And it's actually a spacing of sequences from semitones and tones. So a tone is exactly double a semitone. So if you get a semitone difference from a note by multiplying frequency of the magic number by 1 time, to get the difference in one tone is multiplying the magic number 2 times. Okay, so if you look at C, C is the most common example of this. So do, when we sing do re mi fa sol la ti do, it's do is actually the C. Okay, so do re mi fa sol la ti do, and the difference, the spacing in terms of frequencies is always like this: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. If you look at the keyboard, it looks very. It tells you that already. It's tone, tone, then semitone, and then a tone, 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 then a semitone. So it's 2 tones and 3 tones. Between 2 tones, 1 semitone, 3 tones, 1 semitone. So that's basically the formula you would use to generate what we call the major scale, which is the set of notes you want to play a happy song in a particular for a particular song. And then this formula can be applied on any note, right? Because on the keyboard usually we start with the C. C is here. So do re mi fa sol la ti do. That's your octave, right? And this is playing in C. That means your very first note before this tone is the C. So that's what I mean by a song is sung or played in the key of C, because the very first note is in C, is C. So you could play the exact same formula in a different key, or starting with a different note basically. So you can start with G. So that's exactly the same formula. It's also the major scale, the major progression. Sounds happy, but is a different key because you started from a different note. So that formula applies everywhere. That's why people pick up the guitar and they learn how to do this scale. It becomes guitar is very easy to change key because all you need to do is move the position and you just repeat the same position, same shape of positions that you play on the fretboard, in a sense. It's exactly the same relative positions from the root notes, the key. So in here, this code, what we're doing is we are once again starting from the A note, one octave lower than the reference A. And we generate all the possibilities up to the next octave A. We set a tone as 2 and semitone as 1, and we define the major scale pattern here in terms of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And then we start putting together our major scale, basically. Okay, so this list is going to contain all the notes in our major scale, starting from the first one. We start from 0, scale pattern each, do interval. So this is going to give you T, and current is going to plus 2 or 1, right? So we're going to push a particular note frequency from this list that we generated here, based on whether it's 2 or 1. So the very first one will be tone. You'll get T equals to 2. So current will become 2. You get the second note frequency, which would be A will be 0. This will be 1. This will be 2. So this will be the second in the list of note frequencies, for example. So that will be added to our major scale. We just follow that progression, and then we follow the same code that we're not very interested in to actually play that major scale, and then you get the major scale. This is the HDMI doesn't transmit sound, right?
It should. You have to select the correct. So if you go to sounds,
Sounds here.
you have to command space to go to sounds. One of your that's last thing, right? Yeah, so I'll put on the top of the tablet and then select sharp HDMI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the no output.
So it should be fine.
Thanks. So yeah, that's your major scale. And every song basically is a combination of notes from this major scale. That's how you get your songs. So that's music. And the next thing if you want to go further, would be multiple notes played together at the same time. So those are called chords. So 2 or more notes played together at the same time is called a chord. And on the guitar, okay, maybe first on the keyboard. So on the keyboard, chord is like basically when you press any two keys at the same time, that's a chord. And every song basically is built on a base of chords. And there's a normal chord progression sequence normally that gives you generally a good sounding piece of music. So if you're in the key of C, there's a certain set of chords that you are sort of allowed to play if you are playing in the key of C, for example. And that would be something like this. So this is not quite complete, but so the root would be your key. So if you're in the key of C, your root note is C. Okay, and basically, if you look at all these, right, these tell you what kind of chord to play, because there's generally speaking 2 types of chords: major chords and minor chords, happy and sad. So, for example, if I play on the guitar, this is G. So there's a very cheerful type sound to it. If I play the minor version, so it's a more dramatic twist to it. And chord-wise, there's only one note difference, but basically you're picking notes from the minor scale of that key. So you can, like just now we described the major scale, there's also a minor scale. And the sequence of tone, semitones for that is different, but I won't go into that. Basically, if you're playing in the key of C, and you want to play the third, which is, you count, so C will be the root, and the second is D, and E is the third. So if you want to play the third, you would normally play the minor of the third. For example, this chart doesn't show you that, but so that's basically how you would arrange a song. And most songs, which is not, many songs, pop songs these days, follow a very standard chord progression, which is, let me see. Which is the first, which is the root chord, in a sense, and then the fifth, and then the sixth, and then the fourth. So with these four chords, you can play like almost any pop song in history. A lot of people have done like videos where they make fun of these four chords because so many chords can be played with these, so many songs can be played with these four chords. But there is a theory behind all this, and it's not immediately clear in science why it's like that. But we just subjectively impose that, this is the sequence that normally works. So for example, if I'm playing in the key of G, the next chord, the second A, I will play minor. Then the B, I will play minor as well. And then the C, I'll play major. And so on and so forth. Till back to the G up here, which is one octave higher. So I can play chords one octave higher as well. But there's usually no reason to do that. So basically, that's how you can get into songwriting. If you know the chords that fit in a particular key, then it's just about playing around with the sequence of chords and which chords you throw in where. So once you know these general guidelines, and you experiment a bit, you can basically become a songwriter. It's actually not that difficult. Of course, you can always take the standard four chords, it's called the four-chord trick, and just add a melody to it that no one else has added before, and just do it that way. And that's how basically, this music. So it's like, So that's my then my friend. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Can you play this one?
These four chords?
Yeah.
You want to play in the chord or? So, yeah, it is because the way the sound is generated right now is using sine wave. Yeah.
Right.
So the sine wave is like the purest type of sound frequency type that you can get. Basically, when you ring a bell, it sounds like that. And there's whole other science to why different instruments sound differently even though they're playing the same frequency, the same note, for example. Like if I can sing,
harmonics.
yeah, it's harmonic. So the wave doesn't look like a regular sine. It's not so nice. It's bumpy here and there, bumpy there. Bumpy in different places, in different instruments. So the waveform is different. Which is why when you sing a note, it sounds different from when you play the note on the guitar or when you play a note on the keyboard or piano. So basically, yeah.
So how do you describe frequencies for
chord?
How do you describe frequencies?
So a chord notes, right?
Which picture?
Most chords start with the unison, which is the root note of the chord, and the perfect fifth. You notice the fifth doesn't have a major or minor variation. So most chords will have the first and the fifth. And the note that decides whether it's a major or minor chord is actually the third, which has a major and minor variation. So when you change the third, you get the major and minor chord. In terms of frequencies, he does do that also. So in the chord one, basically in terms of this pattern, the tone-tone, semitone pattern, you won't understand a chord in terms of frequencies, but in terms of a collection of notes, which notes work together with the chord. So if I'm playing the C key of C, for example, and tone-tone, tone-tone, semitone, right? So this one is my third. So I'm always playing first, fifth with the third. That gives you your chord. And if I want to, this is the major chord. So if I want the minor, C minor chord, I would make the third minor. So it's one semitone lower. That gives you your minor variation. On the guitar, it's a bit more complicated because you have six strings, generally speaking. So what generally happens is you are playing the same note one octave higher, one octave lower in the guitar. So that's how the guitar forms a chord. And the trick with music, when you really get around to experimenting, right, is that for a C major chord, for example, this is one way to play a C major chord, but you can play a C major chord like this as well. And you can also play a C major chord like this. Basically, the rule is, as long as you have all the notes in the chord there, it doesn't matter which order, which one is the lowest note in the chord, or even what order the notes are being played. You will still get a good sounding chord for that particular type of chord. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's happening. So if you know music theory and you do the scale on the guitar, that's exactly how you, by going to the first, this is the first, and this is the third. This is one octave higher than the root. So actually, this is the fifth. Yeah. So first, fifth, and the first again. So when you play these three notes, there is no third in this chord, right? So you can't say it's not clear whether it's a major or minor chord. If you just play these three notes. And this is a special type of chord actually, it's called a power chord. And it's used extensively in rock music. So you will like, so that's just 3 strings per chord. And the 3 strings are playing the first, fifth, and then back to the first and one octave higher. So there's no third in that. You add the third, you get more of a major or minor type feeling. So you get, or, so that's actually the next string that is in the whole chord shape. But yeah, that's more guitar specific. So it's very, it helps, like if you do jazz, because jazz forces you to improvise. So you sort of have to know what notes follow from a particular set of notes that have already passed. And if you know the theory, it helps you figure out what note to play next, in a sense. Yeah. So yeah, that's how you understand the chord. Not in terms of frequencies, but
Okay. This is what to play with.
what notes come together. And chords can get very complicated because in general there's no rule in music. There's no like you have to play this set of notes together. You can play all sorts of random notes together and still call it a chord. And that's what you do in jazz, because jazz is experimentation, improvisation. So they really played around until they found these very weird sounding chords that in theory make no sense, but they sound nice. You know, like for example, I have no idea how to begin describing this chord. This is not a typical C major or something like that. There are a lot of chords like this. Yeah, basically they have 4 times. So jazz musicians especially need to know all this stuff, how to build chord from the notes, and what notes work, what notes don't work. And once you learn the rules, you learn how to break the rules. So like this scale pattern, right? Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. It 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 excludes certain notes from your playing, right? So if you look at how I'm playing this major scale, I'm skipping certain frets, right? But if you know how to, if you are so familiar with the music, right, you will know when those notes can still come in anyway. So it's like, yeah. So the easiest example I can give is another type of scale, not the major or minor scale, but the pentatonic scale. Pentatonic scale is a scale of 5 notes instead of 7 notes. So this scale is special because there's only 5 notes, and it's interesting because from these 5 notes. So it's like something like that. This guitar is not quite suited for that kind of yeah, but so you can play like so those are all pentatonic scales. This is 5 notes in the scale. So after the 5th note, you repeat back the first note. And this scale is also interesting because of it's used in rock and blues. So it's Chinese music, but it's rock and blues music. So it's very hard. A lot of musicians get tricked into playing this scale like a Chinese song, but they're actually intending to play rock and blues. Yeah, but this scale is one of those scales that is very easy to find those notes that are not in the scale, but you can play even though you're playing that key. So for example, this is the scale. That's the pentatonic scale. So you're going to play the notes that don't belong in the scale but still sound right. We have so we get this that kind of more blues type of music, more jazzy in a sense. So it's like you start to get a sense of how jazz evolved. You get playing all these notes, and then you start to realize, hey, these notes work, but in theory they shouldn't work. So I don't know what's happening, but I play. So that's with jazz, and how blues and jazz evolve. That's why blues and jazz are actually the most interesting forms of Western music. It's highly technical, so I don't know if like. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
It's very long.
Sorry?
It's very long.
Yeah. Yeah, so yes, no problem.
Is it called at least 3 keys?
No.
Next.
What is